The World Before Jesus. A Story of Faith and Waiting. 1,000 Words. Have you ever wondered what the world was like before Jesus Christ came? What kind of people walked the earth then, who believed in one true God, who worshipped idols, and who searched for truth in the silence of their hearts? Let us lift the veil of time and journey back more than 2,000 years to a world preparing, knowingly or unknowingly, for the coming of the Messiah. A world filled with devotion, corruption, hope, and hunger for light. Jerusalem, the heart of faith. The city of Jerusalem stood as the sacred center of Jewish life. Its narrow streets echoed with prayers, the smell of incense rose from the great temple, and the shofar's call announced the hours of worship. Here, faith was not a private affair, it was life itself. Every action, every meal, every word was guided by the law of Moses. But within this faith, there were divisions, groups, and sects that saw the law through different eyes, and each believed that they alone held the true path to God. The Pharisees, guardians of the law among the people, the Pharisees were the most respected. They were scholars, teachers, and interpreters of the Torah. They believed that God's revelation was not limited to written words alone, that the oral traditions, the teachings passed down from generation to generation, also carried divine authority. They lived close to the common folk, teaching in synagogues scattered across the land. To them, holiness was not confined to the temple. It was in the marketplace, in the home, even in the act of washing one's hands before a meal. Their devotion was visible in their discipline, strict dietary laws, ritual cleanliness, and a life ordered by commandments. They sought to live in purity so that God's presence would remain among His people. Yet in their passion for the law, many Pharisees grew proud. Their righteousness sometimes became a wall, dividing them from those they deemed unworthy. Still, they were the heartbeat of Jewish faith, preserving it through dark and difficult times. The Sadducees, the power of the temple, on the other side stood the Sadducees, wealthy, aristocratic, and powerful. They controlled the great temple of Jerusalem, the very heart of Jewish worship. They were priests, politicians, and noblemen who saw faith through the eyes of authority. Unlike the Pharisees, they accepted only the written Torah and dismissed the oral traditions. They believed in no resurrection, no angels, no afterlife. For them, God's blessings and punishments existed only in this world. Their religion was practical, political, a faith of control rather than longing. Because of their position, the Sadducees worked closely with the Roman rulers who occupied the land. While many despised them for this compromise, the Sadducees saw themselves as protectors of peace, maintaining the temple, preserving order, and preventing rebellion. But their wealth and worldliness made them blind to the spiritual hunger of the people. The common man prayed for a savior. The Sadducee prayed for stability. The Essenes, the seekers of purity, far away from the noise of the cities near the shores of the Dead Sea, lived another group, the Essenes. They had turned their backs on society, believing it had grown corrupt and impure. In simple white garments, they lived in quiet communities, sharing everything they owned. They rose before dawn to pray. They ate together, worked together, and studied the scriptures together. To them, material wealth was a burden, and silence was sacred. They believed that the end of the age was near, that soon God would send His chosen one to cleanse the earth and establish His kingdom. Every sunrise reminded them of a promise, every sunset of patience. The Essenes copied sacred scrolls by hand and hid them in clay jars inside nearby caves, scrolls that would, 2,000 years later, be discovered by shepherds and scholars, known today as the Dead Sea Scrolls. They were a voice from the wilderness, quiet, faithful, and waiting. Life, food, and faith. Daily life in ancient Judea was simple, but deeply spiritual. Food was more than nourishment, it was worship. The people followed kosher laws strictly. Only certain animals could be eaten, blood was forbidden, and meat and dairy were never served together. A meal began with prayer and ended with thanksgiving. bread baked in clay ovens, fish roasted over coals, olives pressed for oil, and sweet dates from Jericho. These were the blessings of the land. Even the act of eating was seen as holy, a reminder that every gift came from the Creator. To be pure before God meant not only to speak truth and keep His commandments, but also to live with mindfulness in every act, even in breaking bread. A nation under Rome, but outside the walls of the temple, the world was restless. Rome ruled with an iron hand. Taxes were heavy, soldiers patrolled the streets, and rebellion was always a whisper away. Many Jews dreamed of freedom, a warrior king like David who would break Rome's chains. Others waited quietly for a spiritual deliverer, one who would bring peace, not swords. The prophets had spoken of a Messiah, a Savior who would restore Israel. But centuries had passed, and the promise still felt far away. Some lost hope. Others held it tighter than ever. The dawn of hope, and then, into this world of faith and division, of power and longing, a new dawn began to rise. A carpenter worked in Nazareth. A young woman prayed in silence. The heavens waited, and across the land, hearts whispered the same question. When will the Savior come? No one could imagine how quietly the answer would arrive. Not in the courts of the Sadducees, not in the schools of the Pharisees, not even in the deserts of the Essenes, but in a humble manger, among shepherds and stars. The world before Jesus was a world searching, a world full of rules but empty of peace, rich in rituals but poor in love. And into that world, grace was about to be born. This is not merely history. It is the story of humanity's eternal hunger for God, a hunger that still beats in every human heart. For even today we search for truth, for light, for meaning, and just as before, the answer remains the same, not in power, nor in pride, but in the quiet coming of love itself.